Hello everyone, my name is Belle, and today we're going over everything you need to know on how to properly build and play Zibai, a 5-star Geo Sword main DPS who's built entirely around Lunar-Crystallize reactions and long on-field uptime. Zibai isn't a traditional Geo carry, and she isn't a plug-and-play DPS you can throw into random teams. She's a Lunar character through and through, and once you understand how her kit works, her builds, weapons, and teams all start to make a lot more sense. In this video, I'll be covering Zibai's Ascension and Talent Materials, a full breakdown of her kit and how she actually plays, the best weapon choices including strong free-to-play options, artifact sets and stat priorities, talent leveling order, team compositions for both premium and free-to-play players, and finally answering the question everybody asks when a new DPS drops: is Zibai actually free-to-play friendly? Before we get into Zibai's materials and builds, I want to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, Enjoygm. Enjoygm is a fast, secure, and affordable top-up service for games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, Withering Waves, and Zenless Zone Zero. And the biggest reason people use it is simple. It's cheaper than official top-ups, often with special discounts that can go up to 35% off. Using Enjoygm is super simple. You just select your game, enter your UID and server, choose the amount you want to top up, and that's it. No logging into your account, no passwords, and no risky information required. If you're planning to pull for Zibai, her signature weapon, or future Lunar characters, Enjoygm is a really solid way to stretch your budget a bit further without sacrificing security. I'll have my link in the description and pinned comment if you want to check it out. Now let's talk about what you actually need to raise Zibai. Zibai gains crit damage as her Ascension stat for a total of 38.4% crit damage at level 90. This is extremely important because it already gives her a massive head start on damage, and it means you don't need to chase crit damage nearly as aggressively on your artifacts. That freedom is what allows her to stack defense and crit rate more comfortably without her build feeling awkward or overly restrictive. To fully ascend Zibai from level 1 to level 90, you'll need a total of 420,000 Mora. For boss material, she requires 46 Remnant of the Dreadwing from her world boss. For elemental gemstones, you'll need the full Geo set from the Prathiva Topaz line, including 1 sliver, 9 fragments, 9 chunks, and 6 gemstones. Her local specialty is Glaze Lily, and you'll need 168 of them in total. For enemy drops, she uses Warrant materials, specifically 18 Tattered Warrant, 30 Immaculate Warrant, and 36 Frost Etched Warrant. Now for talents. To raise a single talent from level 1 to level 10, you'll need 1,625,500 Mora, 1 Crown of Insight, 6 Ascended Sample Queen from the World Boss, and gold talent books in the following amounts: 3 Teachings of Gold, 21 Guides to Gold, and 38 Philosophies of Gold. On top of that, you'll also need Warrant materials again, specifically 6 Tattered, 22 Immaculate, and 31 Frost Etched per talent. If you're planning to crown more than 1 talent, definitely plan your resources ahead of time. Now that we covered what it takes to raise her, let's talk about how Zibai actually works, because her kit explains almost every single build and team decision you'll make. Zibai is a full on-field main DPS. She's designed to stay on the field during her rotation, and swapping off her early is one of the biggest damage losses you can make. Her normal attacks are standard sword attacks, and her charged attack consumes stamina to deal 2 quick slashes. But neither of these are where her damage truly comes from. Everything in Zibai's kit revolves around her elemental skill in a special state called Lunar Phase Shift. When you use her elemental skill, Heaven and Earth Made Manifest, Zibai enters Lunar Phase Shift mode. While this mode is active, all of her normal and charged attacks are converted into Geo damage that cannot be overridden by other infusions. More importantly, she begins generating a special resource called Phase Shift Radiance. Zibai gains Phase Shift Radiance in 2 ways. She gains 10 points every second while Lunar Phase Shift is active, and she gains 5 points when her normal attack hits an enemy, which can happen once every half a second. She can store up to 100 Phase Shift Radiance at a time. Once Zibai reaches at least 70 Phase Shift Radiance, her elemental skill transforms into a special version called Spirit Steed Stride. Using Spirit Steed Stride consumes 70 Radiance and deals 2 instances of Geo damage, with the second hit being considered Lunar-Crystallize reaction damage. This second hit is extremely important because a massive portion of Zibai's total damage comes from these Lunar-Crystallize instances rather than raw Geo multipliers. During a single Lunar Phase Shift window, Zibai can normally use Spirit Steed Stride up to 4 times before the mode ends. This This is why staying on the field and continuously attacking matters so much. If you swap out too early, you're not just losing a little bit of damage, you're potentially losing entire Spirit Steed Stride casts, which is a huge DPS loss. Zibai's Elemental Burst, Tri-Sphere Eminence, deals 2 instances of Geo damage as well, with the second hit again counting as Lunar-Crystallize reaction damage. It has a 60 energy cost and a 15-second cooldown, which makes it very easy to use every rotation. In most content, it's recommended to use her burst at the start of her rotation, so that way you have more time to regenerate energy for the next one. The final piece that ties everything together is Lunar-Crystallize itself. When Zibai is in the party, any Hydro-Crystallize reaction is converted into Lunar-Crystallize. Her passive talent further increases Lunar-Crystallize base damage based on her defense up to a very high cap. This is why Hydro teammates matter so much for a Geo DPS, and why defense is not just a defensive stat for Zibai. It directly increases her reaction damage. Once you understand that Zibai's damage comes from defense-scaled Lunar-Crystallize hits during extended on-field windows, her weapon choices start to make a lot more sense. Zibai's signature weapon, Light-Bearing Moonshard, is her best in-slot option. It provides massive crit damage, increases her defense, and directly boosts Lunar-Crystallize damage after using her elemental skill. Every part of this weapon lines up perfectly with her rotation, and is easily her strongest option if you have access to it. Among other 5-star weapons, Uraku Misugiri is an excellent alternative thanks to its crit damage, defense scaling, and increased skill damage. Light of Foliar Incision is another strong option, especially in reaction-heavy teams, because it converts elemental mastery into additional damage for normal attacks and skills. Peak Patrol Song provides an enormous amount of defense and can outperform many weapons through raw stats alone, even if its damage bonuses aren't perfectly tailored to Zibai. Splendor of Tranquil Waters functions as a crit damage stat stick, and while its passive isn't ideal for her kit, the sheer stat value still makes it competitive. Now here's the important part. Zibai is extremely free-to-play friendly. Harbinger of Dawn, a 3-star weapon, is genuinely strong on her if you can maintain high HP. It provides a massive amount of crit value, although you do need to be careful not to overcap crit rate. Among 4-star options, Flute of Espitzel is the baseline free-to-play weapon. It provides a huge amount of defense from both its main stat and passive, making it an excellent match for Zibai's scaling. Cinnabar Spindle is another very strong option if you have it, and Jaifo's Moonlight can help with energy recharge while still contributing to reaction-based gameplay. For 5-star weapons, refinements are not necessary. R1 is perfectly fine, and you should never feel pressured to refine them. For 4-star weapons, refinements matter more, especially for weapons like Flute of Espitzel and Cinnabar Spindle. Harbinger of Dawn should always be at R5 if you're using it. Artifacts are where most people make mistakes with Zibai, so this section is very important. Zibai's best artifact set is Night of the Sky's Unveiling. This set provides elemental mastery, grants Zibai a massive crit rate bonus while she's on the field, and increases party-wide lunar reaction damage. Because Zibai also increases the party's moon sign level by 1, she activates the strongest version of this set's effects extremely easily. This artifact set alone solves a huge portion of her crit requirements and massively boosts her team's overall damage. For main stats, Zibai generally wants defense % on her sands, defense % or elemental mastery on her goblet, and either crit rate or crit damage on her circlet depending on your weapon and substats. And this is very important. Geo damage goblets are not recommended. They do not increase Lunar-Crystallize damage and are worse than defense or EM goblets in almost every scenario. For substats, you prioritize crit rate and crit damage first, then defense % and elemental mastery, with energy recharge being a lower priority. Zibai does not need much energy recharge at all. Around 120 to 130% is more than enough in most teams. At a reasonable level of investment with free-to-play weapons, a good Zibai build will sit around 18 to 20,000 HP, 900 to 1100 attack, 45 to 55% crit rate, 160 to 190% crit damage, 120 to 130% energy recharge, and roughly 2600 to 3000 defense. You don't need perfect artifacts for her to perform extremely well. Now let's talk about Zibai's constellations, because she's already fully functional at C0, but her cons do 2 important things. They make her rotation smoother, and they massively spike her Lunar-Crystallize damage. The good news is that you don't need constellations for her to feel strong. The dangerous part is that a couple of them are so impactful that they can make people feel like C0 is missing something, even though it really isn't. Constellation 1 is a high quality of life and a big early power spike. After using her elemental skill, Zibai immediately gains 100 phase shift radiance, and the maximum number of Spirit Steed Stride uses per lunar phase shift mode increases from 4 to 5. That alone makes her rotation feel way more forgiving because you're no longer racing as hard to hit your radiance threshold. On top of that, every time you enter Lunar Phase Shift, your first Spirit Steed Stride gets a massive bonus. The second hit Lunar-Crystallize damage is increased by 220%. In practice, C1 makes her opener hit absurdly hard and makes her entire skill window smoother. If you're the kind of player who hates rotations that feel tight, this is a constellation that fits that feeling. Constellation 2 is where she starts turning into a team-wide lunar monster. While Zibai is in lunar phase shift mode, all nearby party members' Lunar-Crystallize reaction damage is increased by 30%. That's not a small buff. It's a straight-up team damage amplifier for exactly what her team wants to do. And it also upgrades her first Ascension passive. The second hit of Spirit Steed Stride deals additional damage equal to 550% of Zibai's defense. That's the moment where defense stacking stops being good and becomes ridiculous. If you're investing into Zibai beyond C0, C2 is a constellation that gives you the biggest combination of your personal damage and team value. Constellation 3 increases her elemental skill level by 3. It's a straightforward damage increase because her skill is her entire gameplay state, but it doesn't change how you play her. It just makes the numbers larger. Constellation 4 is a comfort and burst constellation for her basic attack flow. While in Lunar Phase Shift, Zibai's normal attack sequence will not reset, which makes her gameplay feel smoother and less punishing if you have to reposition or dodge. And when Spirit Steed Stride hits opponents, she gains Scatter Moon Splendor, which makes her next 4th normal attack hit deal 250% of the original Lunar-Crystallize reaction damage. Basically, C4 adds a chunky extra spike to her 4th hit loop, and it rewards you for staying in rhythm during her skill window. Constellation 5 increases her burst level by 3. More burst damage, nothing complicated, but still a meaningful increase because her burst second hit is also Lunar-Crystallize reaction damage. And Constellation 6 is her final form scaling. While Zibai is in the lunar phase shift mode, her phase shift radiance gain rate increases by 50%, which makes it far easier to spam enhanced skill casts. Then it changes Spirit Steed Stride, so it consumes all phase shift radiance. And any radiance spent above 70 increases the damage of that Spirit Steed Stride and Zibai's Lunar-Crystallize reaction damage for the next 3 seconds by 1.6% per extra point. C6 essentially turns radiance into a damage amplifier and makes her biggest hits balloon if you can build and spend radiance efficiently. So the constellation summary is this: Zibai is strong at C0, C1 makes her rotation smoother and front loads huge damage, C2 is the biggest practical stopping point for people who want to invest without going all the way, and C6 is a massive scaling cap that turns her into a true endgame hyper carry. If you're choosing where to stop, C0 is completely fine, C1 feels amazing, and C2 is the I want real power breakpoint. As for talent priority, Zibai's elemental skill should always be leveled first. This controls her lunar phase shift uptime, her phase shift radiance generation, and the damage of Spirit Steed Stride. Her elemental burst is second priority since it contributes additional Lunar-Crystallize damage and fits naturally into her rotation. Her normal attacks can usually stay at level 1 as needed. Now, before we go any further, I want to talk about Zibai's passive talents. These passives explain why she wants Geo and Hydro teammates, why defense is a real damage stat for her, and why reaction uptime isn't optional if you want her to feel as strong as she looks. Her first Ascension passive is the Selenic Adeptus Descends, and this one is basically a giant stamp that says build defense. After you cast her elemental skill, Heaven and Earth Made Manifest, or when you trigger Moondrift Harmony, Zibai gains an effect called Moonfall for 4 seconds. While Moonfall is active, the damage dealt by the second hit of Spirit Steed Stride is increased by 60% of Zibai's defense. This matters a lot, because Spirit Steed Stride is already a huge portion of her rotation. And the second hit is the Lunar-Crystallize hit you're building your entire team around, so the better your defense is, the more your big moment hits actually scale. Her fourth Ascension passive is Layered Peaks Pierce the Clouds, and this is the reason her teams feel so locked in to Geo and Hydro. For every other Geo party member, Zibai gains 15% more defense. For every other Hydro party member, she gains 60 Elemental Mastery. This is why her best teams are almost always some combination of Geo supports plus a Hydro enabler. Geo teammates push her defense scaling higher, and Hydro teammates make Lunar-Crystallize stronger and more consistent. It's also why Zibai feels noticeably worse when you try to run her in teams that don't commit to Geo and Hydro. Her utility passive is Moonlit Flower Forest, and it's simple but actually kind of nice for overworld play. At night, between 1800 and 6 o'clock, When you're not in combat, Zibai restores 1 elemental energy every 2 seconds. It doesn't work in domains or Spiral Abyss, so it's not an endgame power passive, but it's a quality of life bonus that helps her stay burst ready when you're exploring or doing world content. And finally, the passive that really defines her identity is Moon Sign Benediction, the coursing sun and moon. When a party member triggers Hydro-Crystallize, it gets converted into Lunar-Crystallize. And then Zibai boosts the base damage of Lunar-Crystallize based on her defense. For every 100 defense that she has, Lunar-Crystallize base damage increases by 0.7%, up to a maximum of 14%. That's a massive scaling cap, and it's the clearest explanation for why she wants defense so badly. You're not stacking defense on Zibai just to make her tanky, you're stacking defense because it directly increases the reaction damage her entire kit is built around. And as a final bonus, when Zibai is in the party, your party's moon sign level increases by 1, which matters a lot for lunar-focused sets and teammates that scale with moon sign thresholds. So when you put these passives together, Zibai's rules become clear. Stay on the field, build defense, run Geo and Hydro teammates, and make sure Hydro-Crystallize is happening consistently so it turns into Lunar-Crystallized. Now let's talk about teams, because this is where Zibai really shines. Zibai is best played in Geo and Hydro focused teams. Geo teammates increase her defense through passives, while Hydro teammates increase her elemental mastery and enable consistent Lunar-Crystallize reactions. This is why Columbina is considered her best partner. Columbina boosts Lunar reaction damage, provides moon sign synergy, and applies Hydro extremely reliably, making her the ideal support for Zibai. Premium teams usually pair Zibai with Columbina, Illua, and a Geo support like Goru or Zhongli. These teams maximize defense, reaction damage, and survivability. If you don't have Columbina, there are still strong alternatives. Ino can act as a replacement, especially at higher constellations. Xingqiu remains one of the best off-field Hydro applicators in the game and works very well in Zibai teams. Mona can also be used for her damage amplification and utility. For free-to-play players, teams like Zibai with Ino, Illua, and Goru or Barbara perform really well. These teams maintain Lunar-Crystallize uptime, provide defense buffs, and offer enough sustain to keep Zibai on the field for her full rotation. So is Zibai free-to-play friendly? Yes, very much so. She works extremely well at Z0, has excellent free-to-play weapon options, scales off accessible stats, and does not require constellations to function properly. Her only real limitation is that she strongly prefers Geo and Hydro teammates, and she doesn't perform as well outside of lunar-focused teams. But if you're willing to play into her design, Zibai is one of the strongest and most forgiving DPS characters available to free-to-play players. And that's everything you need to know about Zibai, from her materials and kit, to her builds, teams, and long-term value. If you'd like to see follow-up videos focusing on optimal rotations, no Columbina optimizations, or deeper Lunar-Crystallize mechanics, let me know what you'd like to see next in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.